China just shook up the electric vehicle sector in Europe by withdrawing from its investments. Everyone is left wondering what will happen next. The EU has imposed significant tariffs on Chinese-made EVs, and China is now hitting back hard, making it plain that it would not tolerate unjust treatment of its automakers. This trade war may have far-reaching consequences for everyone engaged, from automakers to average drivers. Are we ready to see a huge battle between Europe and China? As both parties maintain their position, the future of electric vehicles is on the line. Shall we break down this drama? Remember those tariffs the EU imposed on Chinese-made electric vehicles? Well, China isn't letting it slip. In a power move, China directed its car-making behemoths to halt any big investments in the European nations that supported the taxes. We're talking about big money initiatives like establishing new factories, which are absolutely off the table. This command was given with a side of "Don't mess with us" at a hush-hush meeting on October 10th. The message was very clear, and it's not only the yes voters on tariffs who are feeling the heat. China also warned against investing in nations that stood on the fence during the vote with the message, "Pick side, since neutrality has repercussions." This entire scenario resembles a tight game of chess, with China making clever moves to defend its interests. Guess what? This isn't the first time China has tried this technique. In July, they did a similar maneuver, warning its firms against investing in India and Turkey due to, you guessed it, trade tensions. China means business guys. Okay, we know China isn't delighted with these tariffs, but what's the big deal? Imagine someone slapping a price tag of up to 45.3% more on everything you're trying to sell. That's exactly what the EU did to Chinese electric vehicles beginning last Wednesday. Their reasoning? They claim China has been unfairly subsidizing its EV industry, giving them an unfair advantage. This entire tariff issue has caused quite a stir inside the EU itself. 10 nations were all for it. 5, including powerhouse Germany, were adamantly opposed, and 12 others were like, "Can't we all just get along?" Clearly not everyone is on the same page here, but China does not back away from a battle. They retaliated with a vengeance, conducting investigations into Europe's pork and dairy industries and even imposing restrictions on brandy imports. Talk about putting insult to injury. So, who is feeling the heat from this trade dispute? For starters, several of China's largest EV manufacturers like BYD, SAIC, and Geely are directly under threat. SAIC, which had grand plans to open a shiny new EV factory in Europe and expand its parts center in France, is probably reconsidering those plans as we speak. And BYD, which is already building a plant in Hungary, is now considering relocating its European headquarters from the Netherlands to Hungary, citing cost concerns. Coincidence? We don't think so. But here's the kicker. China is not only instructing its corporations to postpone major investments, but also to avoid striking individual deals with European governments in favor of a united stance, encouraging their firms to deal together. It's as if they're saying that if you want to play with us, you'll have to deal with everyone. The EU's reasoning for these levies boils down to this. They want to defend their own green technology industry and keep employment from moving offshore. They are concerned that Chinese EV manufacturers are gaining an unfair edge because to government subsidies, inexpensive land, and availability to raw materials and batteries at incredibly low rates. Essentially, they're claiming China is playing dirty, and they have a point. The market share of Chinese EVs has grown in recent years, rising from 3.9% in 2020 to 25% by September 2023. That's a precipitous ascent that has European manufacturers worried. The EU's automotive sector is significant, employing 2.5 million people directly and 10.3 million indirectly. They will not allow those positions to be eliminated without a struggle. The question is, however, are these tariffs the best course of action? Some experts disagree, arguing that the EU should concentrate on increasing the competitiveness of its own industries rather than attempting to stop Chinese EVs. They claim that these tariffs will simply increase costs for European customers and may even have the unintended consequence of strengthening Chinese firms' position as market leaders. Now, we are aware that China is making the decisions in the EV industry. But the worst part is that they essentially control the batteries, which are the brains behind these vehicles. Recall the absurd subsidies we discussed. Indeed, by 2022, China had invested a staggering $15 billion in the EV sector, with a significant portion of that investment going directly into battery technology. They essentially chose businesses like CATL by hand to become major players in the world. And guess what? It was successful, as CATL currently holds an absurd 32.6% market share in lithium-ion batteries. They have the raw materials, the recipe, the factories, and the ability to produce these things quickly. The EU is rushing to catch up in the meantime. Although they have ambitious plans to construct battery facilities, fewer than half of those projects are truly guaranteed to be completed by 2030. It's like attempting to bake a cake without even having the oven, flour, or eggs ready. China understood this was the game all along. They even compelled foreign automakers that were opening offices in China to use domestic batteries. Talk about a power move. This gave their own battery business a huge advantage and left the EU lagging behind. It will be a difficult fight for supremacy in the EV market until the EU can free itself from China's hold on battery production, even though those tariffs may hurt a little. Since the US has already imposed a 100% tax on Chinese EVs, it is crucial to keep in mind that this is more than just a dispute between the EU and China. There is a full-fledged trade war going on, and everyone is vying for a share of the electric pie. For its part, the EU is attempting to tread carefully. In addition to preserving positive trade relations with China, they also wish to safeguard their own interests. It's difficult to predict how everything will work out because it's a delicate balancing act. The fact that tariffs aren't a one-size-fits-all solution adds still another level of complexity. Rates for various Chinese automakers vary, with Tesla experiencing a rate of 7.8%. Indeed, a significant 35.3% of SAIC's manufacturing is done in China by Tesla, not to mention the other Chinese EV manufacturers that face a tariff wall of 20.7%. BYD is facing a tax of 17%, while Geely has an 18.8% obstacle. Meanwhile, China is protesting, claiming that the EU's tariffs are detrimental to the global supply chain and protectionist. In an attempt to have these levies lifted, they have even brought their case to the World Trade Organization, WTO. Well, tariffs are like a band-aid solution. They may assist temporarily, but if the EU wants to compete with China in the EV race, they need a long-term strategy. Consider it this way. The EU has been playing checkers, and China has been playing chess. China has had a clear vision for EV dominance for many years. They strategically sponsored multiple EV firms rather than just one, invested over $7 billion in R&D, and constructed enormous production centers like the one in Shenzhen that produces over 1 million EVs annually. How is the EU acting? They're still working to get everyone to agree on fundamental tactics. Building a superhighway when every nation wants it to pass through their backyard is difficult. But there are several strategies the EU has up its sleeve. They're beginning to see how important it is to draw in wise investments. They're considering including provisions for businesses to use local suppliers and share tech knowledge rather than simply accepting any investment. Additionally, the EU might take a cue from China's massive investment in charging stations prior to the existence of EVs. They are adept at constructing large-scale infrastructure projects. High-speed rail is one example. Picture Europe covered in charging stations. With more than 450 million potential EV buyers, the EU has the brains, the money, and a huge market. They may have a chance in the electric future if they can straighten out their act, plan long-term, and take a cue from China. The key question is what will happen next. Although no one can say for sure, there is no doubt that this trade dispute will not end anytime soon. In the meantime, Both sides will be vying for positions during the potentially years-long WTO dispute resolution procedure. A full-scale trade war is unlikely, according to some observers. They point out that both parties have a stake in finding a solution because the EU depends largely on China for EV components. According to them, there will probably be some difficult discussions and perhaps even some concessions made along the way. One thing is certain, though. This entire situation serves as a sobering reminder that there are many intricate geopolitical obstacles in the way of a greener future. China has recently demonstrated that they aren't scared to play hardball in the high-stakes game of the EV market. To keep up, the EU and the rest of the globe will need to step up their game. How do you feel about the EU's EV tariffs on Chinese manufacturers? Do you believe that this will have a long-term positive or negative impact on the electric vehicle market? That concludes our discussion for today. If you like this, please like and subscribe to the Global Narrative to receive updates. Next time, see you.